All right, and we're back. I got my buddy Zach. That rhymes.
Yay!
So Zach and I work together, and Zach and I went to ministry school together, ministry training.
Mhm.
So we're ministers, and my kids call her Minister Zach. So they always make sure to add that. They never call her just Zach. It's always Minister Zach, and I think it's the cutest thing ever.
They make me feel so special.
Yes, they run up, and that's what they yell. So I think my kids are the only people that call her that, probably.
That's true.
Because it's kind of a weird name, but whatever, we're going with it. But Zach actually just came back from Belize. She was on an awesome mission trip, and we'll get to that later in the podcast. But to get started, she's going to share a little bit about her story and how God really showed her the path that he'd called her to, despite the plans that she had created for herself. So tell us a little bit about you, Zach. Okay, I seriously love hosting this podcast. And one of the biggest surprises has been the amount of support that we have received from all of you, our listeners, and our amazing sponsors. We have partnered with Promise Grounds, a Texas-based company that also supports global mission by giving clean water ounce per ounce. They provide everything in our studio, from K-cups to fresh coffee beans to all of these adorable cups that we use on set. One of my favorite things to do is personalize each of these cups and recite scripture over our guests before we start recording. If you want to check out these adorable cups and some amazing coffee, click on the link below in our show notes and check out Promise Grounds. Click on the link below in our show notes and check out Promise Grounds. Today's episode is brought to you by Sugaring LA in McKinney, your go-to spot for beauty that makes you feel confident and cared for. Whether you're looking for expert sugaring, skincare, or just a little self-care moments, they've got you covered. Treat yourself today. You deserve it. Check out Sugaring LA in McKinney or click on the show notes below for deals, promos, and discounts. Thank you, Sugaring LA, for sponsoring this podcast.
So I grew up in California, and when I went to church when I was young, we went to a small Filipino community church, and everyone that was there was my family, basically, or family friends, like people who I had always grown up with. So,
like my cousin, like everybody's your cousin.
Literally, everyone is my cousin. And so I was super comfortable in that space, and I always felt like I belonged. I always obviously had people that I knew at church. It was the kind of community that, like, you couldn't just miss a Sunday. Like, everyone would know where you were. So growing up, like, the one thing that I was good at was going to church, but every other spiritual discipline I wasn't very good at. So I didn't practice reading my Bible. I wasn't praying a lot. So even when I was saved when I was 6 years old, when I was young, when I grew up, my spiritual growth, like, I didn't spiritually grow after that. I just stayed at like a 6-year-old level understanding of the gospel and wasn't really growing in my faith like that. But my family moved to Texas when I was in middle school, and we started going to Cottonwood, which is this huge, giant church, and I felt super out of place. There wasn't anyone who looked like me. There wasn't anyone who understood where I was coming from culturally, no one who had parents that spoke the same language as me.
So talk to the audience that's not watching, like, tell us about your culture and what that was growing up.
Yeah, so both my parents were born and raised in the Philippines, and so they're very community based or whatever. They care a lot about family, and we spend a lot of time with our big giant family. That there's nothing more than I want to do on a weekend than to, like, watch my cousin's son's baseball game like on a Saturday morning, and for us just to hang out together at the house. So moving here and not having for church for me not to be a family thing, a big community thing, was really hard. So it was really difficult for me to get plugged into student ministry.
And so the church in California was all Filipinos.
Yes.
Everybody looked like you. Everybody ate the same food. It was very much the same thing. Every single day you kind of it was nothing out of the ordinary. It was how you grew up. You do have a younger sister.
I do.
So the two of you kind of grew up in that.
Yes.
And then moved to Texas. And you're like, okay, this is so different. This church is so much bigger. And there's a totally different culture within the church, and then a culture within Texas that you're trying to navigate. And you felt so isolated.
Yes.
So different.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't even because of anything that like people were saying to me or doing to me. It was an insecurity that I had just let the enemy tell me lies and tell me that people weren't going to understand me, or that like I wasn't going to be able to find friends. So especially at church, it was super hard for me to get connected in the student ministry. At school, it was different. And I was able to like make friends and get connected there.
Were
but at
those
church,
friends that you made at
different.
school Filipino?
No, but a lot of them, like, their parents were immigrants.
Okay.
It was just easier
okay.
that way.
But then the church just didn't have as many, like,
Yeah.
diverse cultures.
Yeah.
And so it was a predominantly white church
Mhm.
with a lot of people that grew up in Texas. They
Mhm.
know Texas. And so
Mhm.
you felt completely like an outcast or a
Yes.
sojourner, like you're just from a different land and now you're here and you're like, what is this?
And again, it wasn't even because of anything that people were saying or doing to me. It was just it was just an insecurity that I felt.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the hardest time getting connected, and I never wanted to go to youth on Sundays, never wanted to go to youth on Wednesdays, and would just go to big church with my parents every week. And my sister had a different story. She's much more outgoing than me, and it was much easier for her to get connected into a community, but I just had such a hard time. So even though I moved to Texas in 6th grade, I didn't get connected into the student ministry until the summer before my senior year of high school.
Wow.
When I started working at the church, doing and running, being a part of a team called Skylark. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a summer day camp that they hold at our church. And I was a teenager working with kids 5 days a week for 10 to 12-hour days. And then the people that I worked with there became my community. And since they came to church with me and were my grade, I was able to, they brought me into their friend group, and I had Christian community for the first time in however many years since I moved from Texas. So that summer was definitely, it was a spiritual marker for me, like in my life. And I was connected for the first time, like with leaders and with other students.
My daughter actually, Oakley, attended Skylark last summer.
Yeah.
I have a funny story because we have always shared the gospel with our kids, and we're kind of on the side of waiting for them to get baptized. You know, like, you need a little skin in the game. Like, I want you to like come up clean. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're so young. Not that she doesn't. We're just kind of holding her back. And I know there's two camps. Some people are like, yes, when you're ready and you understand, you go dunk them, you know. But we're just kind of waiting. I want her to do it once and for all. Like, I don't want her to come to high school and be like, oh, I need to get baptized again. Yeah. Like, I really want the severity of it. Well, she's also been technically walking with the Lord. We asked them, where does Jesus live? In my heart. Like, what is their relationship, you know? Well, at Skylark this past summer, one of her friends got, said the sinner's prayer or said something with the leaders, and they kind of celebrated her. Mm-hmm. And I've always told Oakley, I'm like, you don't need to do that, like in camp or whatever. We've already kind of done it. But if you feel that. So one day, it was like a Thursday, the day after her friend did it, they all came back to the car to drop her off, celebrating that Oakley was doing, said the sinner's prayer. And so they had all this stuff written out. And she's like, Mom, I just wanted somebody to listen to me so I could be saved, And I was like, Oakley, we've already done it. But she needed that moment. Like, that was such a sacred moment in Skylark at Cottonwood on a Thursday. And they celebrated her, and they're like, heaven is celebrating you. You have eternity. Like, that was so impressionable for her to have that like moment. And they wrote her a little certificate. And so she's like, I got saved at Skylark camp, which I've always wanted to protect my kids from. That kind of story. Like, I want them, not to protect them from the story. I think that's a beautiful place, but I hear so many times like, oh, I got saved at church camp. And then I lived this crazy life, or it was an emotional pull. Like, I wanted it to be this deep, radical thing for her.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was. Like, it was my own problem of me perceiving that, like, I worked in youth, and the kids would all get saved or go on these trips, and they would be radical, and then they go back to how they were living, So anyway, Oakley got saved at Skylark. So Skylark has a very huge place for me and my family and our heart. And like, that was her moment with her people and her counselors. They were so impactful for her. So shout out to Skylark for what it did for you and for our family. Like, it's an amazing place. But okay, so senior year, you get Skylark, you find your crew, you're in student ministry at Cottonwood Creek. You're kind of like going every Sunday, every Wednesday.
Yes.
You're all in.
I'm all in.
Okay, then what happens?
I was all in for that entire school year. Like, I never missed a home group or a Sunday morning. Loved going to all of it. And then after we all graduated, and the summer after that was our last year in student ministry, and then all my friends left, and then they went to college. And all of them really like went to big colleges out of reach. And I was the only one that stayed behind and was the only one that was local. So I found my place again, like, okay, I had community and then I lost it. How am I supposed to find it again? Like, where do I go looking? And I tried going to young adults at Cottonwood for a while. At the time, it wasn't super established. There wasn't a lot of them were older than me, outside of college already. So I just felt out of place once again. I was like, again, nobody's in the same life stage as me. Nobody is like just local for home or whatever. So I just was lost again without Christian community. But I was still going to church every Sunday.
And with your parents?
With my parents. Again, like tried going to young adults and stuff. But our student pastor knew that I was local because he would see me every Sunday. And it was just in the fall of my freshman year of college, our student pastor had approached me asking if I would just want to take on an internship with student ministry, the ministry that I had literally just come out of. But I mean, I didn't have a job. I was interested, and he said it would only be like 10, 15 hours a week. So I was in on that. So I wanted to help them. So I started working with Creek Student Ministry in October of 2022. And then from there, I was able to absorb the responsibilities of doing social media and photography. So that was like my main thing when I first started. So I did that for the school year. And then when it came to the summer, a lot of my friends came back as interns. So I was able to find community in ministry, in the people that I was working with.
Did you find that community before the summer? Like as you started working as an intern, just doing photography, videography, like social media, did you kind of start finding that once you started your internship?
Yes. Once I started my internship and I had friends with the people that I was working with, they became like my mentors and people who I looked up to in student ministry. And then I was able to work alongside with them. So it was interesting and so much fun having older friends that were experienced in ministry, people who I knew that I could go to with all my questions, and they became my leaders and then my friends. So it was really special to like have that kind of relationship with them. So I became friends with them, and then that following summer was when some of my friends came in alongside me in ministry. So yeah.
Freshman year, and then you continued through college.
And that entire time, the plan for me in my head was I was studying speech language pathology, basically studying to become a speech therapist at UTD. And the whole plan was that I would just do this until I graduated college. I would like have a side job in ministry and then also be able to study what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I've always been a huge planner from high school, middle school even. I remember they gave us in 8th grade our 4-year plan for high school, which is kind of crazy to me. But like they said, okay, which classes do you think you're going to be taking all of these years? And I basically followed that to a T.
Oh my gosh.
Like the stuff that I planned all the way in 8th grade,
oh my gosh.
I followed.
You're the firstborn, A-type.
Yes.
That's so awesome.
I like studied all of like whenever I would be planning my schedule for college, what I would be doing that semester. I'm like, okay, I have to do these classes so that I don't have to do it next year, so that I can take these classes so that I can graduate in this amount of time.
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up graduating in 2.5 years because all of my college credits were able to transfer, and I just planned really well for it. And then I came to the end of my time in the last semester when I was about to graduate college, And I was like, wait, this is going to be the end of my time in ministry too. Like, I'm supposed to now go on to grad school and do this, and I'm going to be leaving this behind. But there was something in me that was saying, like, Zach, I don't think that you're done doing ministry. I loved it so much, and there wasn't a part of me that wanted to leave it. So God started softening my heart towards ministry my last semester of college. But I was really afraid that my parents weren't going to like it, because the whole plan for me was to become this big whole thing and have a career in medicine, something that they've
Where
always
does that
planned
come
for.
from? Is that a cultural thing?
Yeah.
Explain
Yeah.
that to me.
So one thing that was always a non-negotiable for my parents was that I went to college, and they were gracious enough to like want to provide that for me as well. And my dad had not as much education as my mom did, and they are both immigrants who came to this country, and it's very normal for Filipinos to like want to send their kids through college. Like, that's like their life goal, is to be able to provide that for them and give their kids an education.
Education, but also a good career.
And
like
also a good
medical field.
Yes.
There's like certain medical, what else is kind of like?
For me, it was always medicine, because
Okay.
that's something that I liked doing in school. My dad was like, okay, so you're going to become a doctor then.
And
like,
you were just like, from childhood, you received that and you were like, I'm going.
Yeah.
And you're super smart. You're like, memory is on par, like so good. So you're like, okay, I can do this. I'm capable. There's nothing stopping me. So that's my plan, and I'm going to do that.
Yes, my parents always wanted me to pursue and like be the best at what I did, and wanted me to not ever have to worry about money or not ever have to worry about like any sort of finances, and wanted me to be set for life, because they weren't always in that spot. So they just wanted to set me up for success, and that's the best way that they knew how, was just to send me through school and for me to do my best and for me to be the best at what I could do, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So yeah,
you get to your senior year, but you did it in 2.5 of college, right? Your fourth year technically, but expedited.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I feel drawn back to ministry. I'm not ready to leave this.
Yeah.
But if I want to pursue this, I would need to go back to school.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't, with the 4 years that you completed, there was nothing to do within your field. You would have to keep going.
There was a point that I could stop there, but my parents would want to keep going. Like, I knew if I was kept going down the speech pathology path, I would have to go all the way and like do the master's, do all the things to be in that. But my heart wasn't in it anymore. Even though I loved what I had studied in school, I could not picture a life outside of ministry at the time. But the fear was just that my parents wouldn't let me, and I could not in my heart do that without their approval or without their permission. So I was praying a lot that last semester for God to soften their hearts towards it. Because I believe that I would be disobeying God if I was disobeying my parents. So I was like, okay, God, if ministry is something that you really want me to do, I believe that you're going to change their heart. And I believe that you're going to make a way for this to be comfortable for both me and them. But if it's not in your will, then I don't want it to be in their will either, if that makes sense. Like, so like that whole semester, I was just struggling with the tension of wanting to do both, but knowing that, like, wanting to please my parents, but also do ministry. But I didn't see how both could happen be possible at the same time. But like right at the last semester of it all, after I graduated, I was in this space where I like really didn't want to do speech pathology anymore, but my parents' hearts were softening towards it. And I thought I was going to have to wait a long time to be able to get a full-time job in ministry. And I was like, well, if I can't do full-time ministry, then I'm going to have to go back to school. Like, I can't do this
part-time internship with no schooling.
Yeah.
So that's your prayer request is, okay, God, figure this out for me. Because like, they're not going to move. I don't see an opening at the church. Like, you're kind of in this like standstill.
Yeah.
But your heart is drawn towards ministry. But you haven't had this conversation yet with your parents. So you're not now trying to say, okay, God, like, part the Red Sea for me. Like, figure this out, because there's no path forward.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
So this was on me. I like didn't want to have a serious conversation with my parents because I was afraid that they were just going to say no and that would be it. But my first semester outside of college, I was offered a full-time job in ministry. And it was something that it was super unexpected for me, the timing of it all. I thought I would have to wait even a year to be able to get this position. But I got a call from our student pastor, and he was offering me a full-time job. And I was like super, super excited. And I had said yes without even my parents, like without even having a conversation with them. And then I had called my parents right after, and they were super, super excited for me. Like they were all in wanting this to happen for me. So I like got off the phone with them and then was just super, super relieved and was like in tears out in my car outside of Starbucks where I was when they had called me, and was just super thankful for God for making a way in my life and giving me the opportunity to do things that I would have never studied for. Like I could have never planned in my life. So I was just really thankful to God for making a way for me.
Did your job, obviously the hours changed. You went from 10 to 15 to 30 or 40, right? Full time. Did your job, what you did, change at all? I mean, obviously you're there more, but you're still doing social media. You're still doing photography. Do you have more on your docket, or you're just, that became the full-time focus?
I'm able to get better at the things that I was already doing, and then also able to do like more discipleship and stuff like that, a little bit more administrative roles. And then I get to take on things like the Belize mission trip and stuff like that. So it's getting better at the things that I was already doing. And even like from the beginning of when I started interning, from that ending part, my hours had grown, and I like would schedule my college classes in a way so that I could still make it to all the meetings and stuff like that. So my hours were already growing, and then I was just able to be better and more established in the things that I was doing.
So you're still in school at this time, but you're offered the job.
I was outside of school. I had just finished my last semester.
Okay. And then you accept this job. You weren't sure how your parents would take it, but they were all in.
Yeah.
And you become a full-time employed staff member.
Yeah.
And then you go to ministry training?
Yeah.
So you become a minister. And we just had a transition from one youth pastor who'd been there, how many years?
12.
12 years.
Yeah.
And he started on D Now. I remember that in his testimony. So he started D Now, and then he ended at D Now, and Johnny came in. So Chase left, Johnny came in. So there was a transition there for you. Different leadership styles, different it was probably a learning curve for everyone, Johnny included, because he was from a different church. So he came in with his, agenda and his way of doing things, and you guys had kind of been pretty comfortable with what you knew. Yeah. Right? So that's got to be a challenge too. You're like, okay, this is my plan. But does that feel like a curveball? I mean, obviously it's worked out. It's amazing. And you love the job. Yes. But I can see that being like, did you ever question, like, did I make the right choice? Because when we make a plan, it's like, oh, I'm going to stay in this job and this is my boss and these are the things. But then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, he's leaving. Someone's coming. Did that ever like cross your mind, or were you?
I think God has been softening my heart towards change for a long time now. Not only with my career path over the last few years, but even with the team that we're in right now. All me and one other person, we're the only two that are still there from when I first started, or from when I was a student. So over the past few years, we've had so many people that were in ministry have joined our team and then left for something else. So we've seen a lot of transition points over the past couple of years, and some of them have been super, super hard. Yeah. Because the hardest ones were, for me, were people who were ministers to me before I started working. So specifically Chase, like my youth pastor, he was my youth pastor the entire 6th through 12th grade, and then beyond that. I had really I remember telling him he had been influential in my life for half of it. And so he was like a spiritual leader to me throughout all that time. So him leaving was super hard. But there have been people in the past who have like come and left. And I've always seen God's hand in it. And I know the idea of them leaving was always super hard for me. But I see how God has always made our team better outside of it. Not because they left, but the new that he has brought in. Like he's always been growing and bettering our ministry through every person that has come and left. And I see that
so it's
through Johnny as well.
Yeah, so like Chase didn't leave the church. Chase is still there, and he's still a part of the community, but he's just not running in the same capacity. And I think they did a pretty solid handoff.
Yes.
Like Johnny went in and he's all in, and Chase has moved on to his, discipleship and doing different things, but he's still present there. So I'm not I'm like a B, C type person. Like I just kind of like show up and like I have a planner and I lose it half the time. Like I'm not you. Like you have your plan, you have your thing. So I can definitely see that if that's the mindset and the reference that you have, that God would have to work in your heart as things change. So how do you approach that with God? Like, do you have anxiety and fear when change is coming? What do you pray? Like, what do you think when you're like on the precipice of a change? You know that Chase is leaving, someone else is coming in. Before you met Johnny, before you knew any of this, what was that like for you? Or even like when you talked about leaving the plan, that college trajectory and your parents, like what were those seasons like for you? Did you feel the comfort of God? Was it isolated? Did you just like walk it out by yourself and say like, I'm not going to share this with anyone. It's you and me, God. Like, go to those two moments in your life and talk to me about what that looks like.
Something that I've always had a strong sense of is God's sovereignty over things. So people have different struggles, but I've never been one to question God's plan, if that makes sense. Like I see his hand in everything. So even with every transition and every person that has come in and left, I just see his hand in it.
You kind of like honor it to be the Lord's sovereignty. What does the word sovereignty mean? I know this is on the spot, but like that is such a hard word to define.
That God has the entire world in his hands. Like, and the way that it plays out, like he is not surprised by any of it. And there are some things that he ordains that maybe I don't have to like, but I have to understand that it's the best for me. So with every transition, like I know that God's hand is over it and that he specifically placed Johnny in our ministry to better it.
So is that faith? Is that what faith looks like for somebody? So somebody who doesn't know like what that means, I don't understand the sovereignty of God. Like I had these plans and this is what's happening. I wanted this and this is what God allowed. So is that where your faith settles? And you say like, I'm just going to trust no matter what, that his plans for me are good.
It's faith in the things unseen. And I know and trust that God is working all things for those who love. And I'm trusting that God is who he says he is. So that God is a redeemer, that God loves me, that God sees me, and that God is faithful to work in and through everything that happens in my life. Not that he specifically places necessarily like bad things to happen, but knowing that like in his sovereignty that he can use everything for his glory and for his good. So I know and trust that this change we can come back better outside of this if we know that that God has a plan to sanctify us and to grow us in this season. So I know and trust that there are a lot of things that I can learn and am learning from my new boss. And it has been awesome.
Yeah.
And I've been growing a lot. And I'm able to see that well because I'm trusting that God is who he says he is.
Talk to me about what that growth looks like. Not that there was anything stagnant or anything wrong with before. It's just different.
Just
right?
different.
And so there's this growth. Is that growth feel like a fire? Like a excitement towards ministry? What does that growth look like?
I feel like I'm being developed as a leader, and there are a lot of things that we're doing differently, which again, like, can be hard. And we're doing more as a ministry. Like on Wednesday night, like we used to do this amount of stuff and now we're doing this amount of stuff. But I can see that and feel overwhelmed, or I can see that and grow.
Right.
So it's like growing pains, but it's all growth and it's all good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm going to ask this question. Being in ministry, so one of the cool things is that you were never under Johnny's student ministry. He was never your minister.
Yeah.
He came in and you were already in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes things too. Not that, but Chase saw you as a 6th grader, 7th, he kind of grew with you.
Yeah.
Now Johnny's like, okay, you're a leader. These are your skills. These are your expectations. This is what you're doing, versus that like other relationship. They've seen you grow up in the church, and that's a beautiful thing. Like that is amazing. And the way that they care for you and grew you to that place. But now there's just this like exponential growth, and you guys are doing more. And I feel like Johnny's on fire for the youth too, just like Chase was. So there's just this radical excitement. You have a new building, like some awesome things coming up. But do you go into youth and do you have this heart for like, I want to find the kid that's alone. I want to find the little Zach that hadn't found her community. Like, are you really big about implementing community because of how it was for you trying to find that? Do you notice that at all?
Yeah, my favorite thing on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights is to sit or stand by check-in and be able to grab students who I know I haven't seen before, or who I know like to sit in the back alone, and be able to connect them with girls their grade, or a leader who I know that's over like that grade, that gender. So just being able to like make connections. And I love being able to see people who would never have become friends because of like the events that we put on or stuff like that. So it is my favorite thing to be able to connect one person to another.
That's like a gift or a calling that God has placed on your life and put you into this ministry specifically for that reason. Like for this moment to be able to see those two wandering hearts that need community and to really implement that. Like that is such a gift to have in a ministry of students. Like you have no idea how many kids come in like awkward, insecure, family issues, like you had an amazing life, but finding your community from what you experienced was really hard. Some of these kids have really hard home lives and their parents just drop them off to get like a couple hours away, or, like they're really dealing with some big issues, and you seeing them and finding them a place to belong is so critical and so Christ-like. Like that heart that you have to really connect people is just such a beautiful thing. And I'm sure there's tons of parents out there that are like, man, Zach made such an impression on my child, and they come to youth because of you. So I just think that's so cool that all those years of you struggling, that God's like, I'm going to redeem that for good.
Yes.
And maybe not good for you in those seasons, but good for someone else, that you can lend your faith or lend your heart of compassion to them. So it's such a beautiful thing.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about Belize.
Oh, it was so much fun. My favorite thing was just getting to see students lead. I gave them a lot of responsibility. We ran a lot of children's youth services for the local churches that our church supports. So it was beautiful to see them share the gospel using a soccer analogy, or to be able to share their testimonies or lead worship to kids overseas, and just to see them exercise their gifts.
How long were you there?
Only 5 days. So it was pretty short.
First mission trip ever?
It's my first mission trip, which was crazy.
I think we talked about it at the coffee shop. I was like, you should go to Belize. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And here you go. You went off to Belize. It was so cool. I was like, yes. Mission
awesome.
Trips, like I remember going on mission trips with the church I used to work at. I was on their missions team, and just this like radical transformation that happened in me. Like something changed when I came back. Do you feel that? Your faith, your walk, your interpretation, like exposure, like did it change you at all?
I think it's different for me. I think I had that moment before, not because I was on mission though. I have gone to the Philippines twice when I was older, and my first time going there and seeing extreme poverty, like in the cities, was really the first moment that, like, when I came back from the Philippines, like, I felt changed. And I wasn't even going on a mission trip there, but like seeing that poverty firsthand, which is something that we almost never see in our area, seeing that for the first hand there and being able to talk with kids. I have an aunt who fosters kids and students who are aging out of the foster system in the Philippines, and being able to spend time with them and getting to give them, seeing them wearing the clothes that I sent over in a box a couple months ago. Even though that wasn't a mission trip, coming back from that was the first time that I have like felt changed, coming back to the States after something like that and being able to experience that. So this trip was different. My takeaway was really seeing the students step up for themselves and them being able to experience that and being able to be leaders and seeing their hearts that they have for the lost was really special for me about this trip.
That's cool. Also, like worshiping in another language. Isn't that cool when we are like, okay, we're praying in a different language whether you're in the Philippines or in Belize, like if there's different dialogues or language, and you're just like, wow, God, like it expands our understanding of who he is, because you're like, do you understand all this too? Do you understand like every language, every tribe, every tongue, every nation, is able to communicate with the God. You know what I mean? Like there's no restriction if we just trust him. And so to me, that was always really cool to hear, like the same songs we would sing here, but in another language, or the same prayer, but like hearing somebody translate. So were they English speaking most of the time? Or?
Yes. Belize is really special because they're the only English speaking country in Central America, but the predominant language / culture outside of English is Creole. So they speak a lot of Creole English, which if you hear it, it kind of
sounds like
you
French.
could kind of pick it up a little bit. So like saying Father God would be Father God.
Father God.
Father God.
Whoa,
it's like just sounds Caribbean and like a Caribbeanized English per se.
That's cool.
So we were able to understand everyone without any translators, which was really special. It's very really different.
Cool. They don't speak Spanish there?
Some of them do.
Yeah, because I went to Belize and I remember there was like a lot of Spanish speakers there.
Yeah.
So Creole, Spanish, English, but you didn't need translation. That's very cool. And what was it like? Was there a lot of poverty? Was there just things that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. So in comparison to the Philippines, where you see a lot of like city slum poverty, in Belize, you see a lot of jungle poverty. Like they live in super rural areas and not a lot of them have access to running water, electricity, stuff like that. People have to walk everywhere to like do anything, and they don't have a lot of access to resources like that. So we did one morning when we went to door, they don't really have a lot of doors, in a local village that our missionary has built relationships with that community for a long time now. So we were able to go around and pass out first aid kits to the families there.
Oh, wow.
And just being able to hear some of their stories, how hard they work for what they have, but how giving and generous they still are after everything. Like they were so giving and generous to us who have so much. And we were just able to share that with them for a little bit.
That's amazing. Yeah. So what would you say if you could go back and talk to little Zach, or somebody who's listening to this podcast that's like, man, I really resonate with what she's saying. Like, what words of wisdom would you give or offer, Bible verses, just to kind of share with our audience?
Yeah. So as someone who, again, I've said, like, I'm such a big planner. I don't love surprises like that. I like having everything set in stone. That's something that God has really been changing in my heart over the past like 3-4 years, just being more comfortable and being more open-handed with my life. I like had such a hold on everything that I thought that I wanted, but God just softened my heart and opened me up into being able to live out something that I just would have never expected. So even as someone who's a huge planner, I just want to encourage like that next person who's like me too, in knowing that whatever you think that the best plan is for your life, God has something even better for you or different. And just trust that his way is always going to be better than yours. So a verse that I like to think about a lot is in Proverbs. It's Proverbs 16 verse 9, and it says, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And there's verses like this all over the Bible where we can have something, but God has something different and better. So just know that the God of the universe, the God who created everything, he sees you and he loves you and he knows so much better than you. So trust that if you're in him, that he is in you too, and that he is fighting for you every step of the way.
I love that. If he is in you and you are in him.
Yeah, like it says in John 15 that like abide in me and I as I abide in you, something like that. So just like God calls us to abide in him and then gives us the assurance that like he is also with us.
That's amazing.
So
that's awesome. Well, I am so happy to have Zach on the podcast just to kind of share about the plans that we think and the way the Lord really determines what's best for us in the mission that he has us on. Sometimes we think what we're doing and what we want to do is for us, but God has somebody out there that we are going to minister to or connect with or support in a way that when you're going through these hard times, just realize that God can use these for good and to support someone else. So keep going if you're in a hard season, and just know that you have community here with us at Unfiltered Grace and Truth. See you soon.